Welcome back to the channel, everybody. And if you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. I really do appreciate it. What we got today is something special. We have a video that includes two separate Bigfoot encounters by two separate American frontiers heroes from back in the day. The first one is going to be from Daniel Boone. Yes, that Daniel Boone. The one and only that went through the Cumberland Gap and was one of the first white people ever to settle in Kentucky. The second one is going to be by the famous Davie Crockett. Yeah, that's right, that Davie Crockett of the Alamo. Both of them had their own Bigfoot encounters, and I'm going to go ahead and give them to you. So I can't wait to tell you guys these stories. How about it? Let's get to it. A historic account of Daniel Boone, the great heroic frontiersman, trapper, hunter of American folklore, versus a Bigfoot. Daniel Boone was out with his son. They were trying to track down some horses that were stolen from them, and on the way back, him and his son ran into a beast. Wait till you guys hear this story. I can't wait to tell it to you guys. First of all, let me say before I tell you guys the story, this is written in English that was a different kind of English. Some of these words are spelled incorrectly, and I'm going to try my best to get through it to make it as understandable as possible, so bear with me. At about 11 o'clock, Captain James Ward said to Boone, "Colonel Boone, would you like to recite your encounter that you had with the giant which you killed? I would like to have my own memory refreshed, and there are many here who have never heard your account of it from your own lips." My father, Reverend William Payne, remarked at this moment that the giant was over 10 feet high. There was present in the company a gentleman by the name of Campbell, who inadvertently and without thought said, "Impossible that any man could be so high." Captain James Ward immediately responded, "Mr. Campbell, you must leave now, for while you stay, Colonel Boone will not open his mouth again." And they went on to explain, Colonel Boone not speaking in the presence of anyone that had thrown a shade of doubt over what he had said or might say, and which my father confirmed. Colonel Boone having said in response to my father that the giant was over 10 feet high. The unfortunate remark of Mr. Campbell painfully suspended all further talk while Campbell remained, so far as Colonel Boone was concerned. This painful suspense was relieved at about 12 o'clock by the coming in of Mr. Moss and taking the colonel and his old friend to his house for refreshments and dinner, and I did not hear the giant story then. I was delighted at about 4 o'clock by the return of the old gentleman and some of his friends to the store, where they remained until it was time to go to Mr. Mocher's to the party. On our way to Mr. Mocher's residence, I walked beside Colonel Boone and said to him that when he wished to leave the party, for him to give me a square of the arm, and I would get his hat, and we would quickly leave by the back way and come back to the store. He said, "Thank you, honey. I shall depend on you, for I dislike to be in a crowd where I have to receive so much attention." I was surprised at his giving me the signal about 9 o'clock, though delighted with the hope of hearing the giant's story. On reaching the counting room, where we had plenty of fine apples, I said to him that I longed to hear the story about the giants. He replied, "You shall have it, honey, but I would not have opened my lips to this time if that man had remained." Colonel Boone's story of the giant. He said it was in the spring of the year, and he was then living in Boonesboro, Kentucky, that the corn was about half a leg high, that on getting up one Sunday morning he found his 2 horses had been stolen by Indians. He saw by the signs that they were 2 Indians. He and his son immediately got ready and went in pursuit. They pursued the track to the headwaters of Hinkston Creek to Calk's Spring, which had the date of February 1778, which has been cut on a tree by William Calk, who entered the land and was living on it when I knew him. Boone was present when the tree was marked. They pursued the track down the creek and crossed a little mound where Mount Sterling is now located. They pursued the track down the creek to where it empties into Licking River, which they crossed to the right bank in pursuit. The track went down Licking River to the Ohio River to where Cincinnati now stands. They had come so near upon the Indians that there was fire still burning where the Indians had stayed before they crossed the Ohio River. He and his son immediately made a raft and crossed over, but on ascending the opposite bank, they found signs of about 500 Indians. They knew that further pursuit was useless and turned back, and landed below the mouth of the Licking River. This was about 3 o'clock in the evening, intending to go about 10 miles down to a spring that he knew of, which came out at the foot of a hill where there was fine open woods and grass, usually abounded in deer, and they stood in need of provisions, as they could shoot none while in pursuit of the Indians, for fear of putting them on the alert by the report of their guns. They found the spring and encamped. There was some rain that night, and the next morning was misty and foggy. The hill ran in the direction of their way home. Boone took one side of the hill and his son on the other. As they walked about the same speed, they could be in hearing of each other's guns. At about 10 o'clock, the fog having cleared off, he heard his son's gun fire, and immediately heard it fire again. From the last report, he knew that the bullet had been put down by his son without a patch. He immediately hastened to the crest of the hill, as he feared that his son had either shot a bear or panther and wounded it, and it had made fight. But on reaching the top of the hill, he could not see his son anywhere. But on looking for a moment, he saw at 250 yards from him the largest man that he had ever seen. He was walking very fast, with his face set in a particular direction. On casting his eyes in the same direction, he saw his son behind a tree loading his gun, and the giant about 75 yards from him. He immediately leveled his gun, but there were so many trees, and the giant walked so fast that he was afraid to shoot for fear he would miss. The giant got up to his son and caught him by the buckskin dress with one hand, while with the other he jerked his gun from him and threw it and broke it off at the breech. Then catching his son by the nape of the neck and the seat of the breeches, and raised him up over his head, just as easy, honey, as I would raise up a child, and slammed him on the ground. He raised him the second time and slammed him the same way, for I was afraid to shoot for fear of wounding or killing my son. But no, I had to shoot, or a third slam would be sure to kill my son if it had not already done it. While the giant was stooping to raise him the third time, I fired, and the giant fell over on my son. I immediately ran up and jerked him off to find my son senseless and not breathing. I immediately made every effort for his restoration to life. It seemed to me more than an hour before he breathed. He finally came to, and after using water freely from my canteen, I so far recovered him as to set him up against the tree, and was glad to find no broken bones. In about an hour more, he stood up and talked. I asked him where he had aimed to strike the giant. He said he had aimed to hit him in the heart with both shots. The giant was naked. I turned him over on his back and found both of the bullet holes near the left nipple and about 2 inches apart, but neither of them had entered the body, but had passed round and came out of the back. I then passed my finger onto each of the holes and found the giant had no ribs, but solid bone about 3/4 of an inch thick, which I found out by cutting through the bone with my tomahawk. My own shot struck him in the left eye, which was very fortunate. The giant was not an Indian, for he was a pale yellow with long yellowish hair, and not black as in common among Indian hair. His body was likewise covered with short hair not very thick. His teeth were all naturally grown together in his head, with rather small eyes and a thick nose, with very large hands and feet. We then stretched him out and laid a walking stick 9 feet long and measured his length, and in measuring it with my hands I found that he was at least 10.5 feet high. My son then got another walking stick, and we then made another measurement. One of the walking sticks was carried by myself to Boonesboro, where we measured them by the squaws, when we found the height to be 10 feet and 8 inches. This is the story of the giant as given to me by Colonel Boone. I asked if he had heard of any such among the Indians and what they knew about them, if anything. He said they had a tradition of giant men and giant beasts, but that the Great Spirit had killed them all somewhere on the Osage River. But that he had never credited. So there it is, everybody. The story of Daniel Boone versus the Bigfoot. I believe that's a Bigfoot that he's talking about there. What else could it be? 10 feet, 8 inches tall, and no ribs, but it had some kind of thick, bony plate. That's pretty fascinating to me. Maybe that's why all these stories you hear about people shooting these Bigfoot and it never really does any damage. Because maybe they have some kind of bone structure that is nothing like what humans have, that like we have, with ribs and everything. Maybe they have ribs that are fused together or something in some kind of bony plate. I mean, good Lord, to have 3/4 of an inch thick bony plate to protect you from kind of attacks from wild animals, or if the creature is like hundreds of thousands of years old or older, even those old type animals that are now extinct, those huge ones, they'd have to evolve or be made to withstand, an attack from those creatures. So that would make sense to me. I don't know. I thought this account was pretty fascinating and I wanted to share it with you guys. I hope you guys liked it. Leave me some comments. Let me know what you think about this. And if anybody doesn't know who Daniel Boone was, he was one of the most famous frontiersmen in American history. He's the one that went through the Cumberland Gap and settled in Kentucky. One of the first white men in that area. And there are lots and lots of stories about him you guys should check out if you're interested in any kind of history of America. Alright, now that I told you that Daniel Boone story, which was amazing, let me go ahead and get into this Davie Crockett one also. Now this Davie Crockett one is kind of like a supernatural one, it seems like to me. Wait till you guys hear it and you guys understand what I'm trying to say. Alright, let's get into it. This particular adventure of Crockett's occurred at a time when there was a massive influx of settlers into Texas, following the American dream in droves by going out west to fan out through the wilderness in search of a better life. It would turn out that Crockett would be one of these, having set his mind on carving out a life in Texas after having served as both a Tennessee state representative and a United States congressman, the latter which he quit after losing an election in which left a sour taste in his mouth for politics, urging him to say the famous line, "Since you have chosen to elect a man with a timber toe to succeed me, you may all go to hell, and I will go to Texas." Angry and bitter, in 1835, he set off towards the unknown horizon and his eventual history-making stand at the Alamo, along with his brother-in-law, Abner Bergen, as well as friends William Patton and Lindsay Tinkle. Things would not go particularly smooth for them. This was an era in which an ongoing territorial dispute with Mexico loomed large over everything, and so they were wary as they entered Mexican-held Texas. Once there, they were stopped by officials and told to sign some documents. Yet all but Crockett and Patton refused to sign the oath of allegiance that the Mexican government required of them, making them legally unable to take action against them. The two who had refused to sign were turned back, and so they were forced to continue on their own. Their journey took them through the Nacogdoches area, and at some point they reached a thick, nearly impossible thicket, and went about the back-breaking work of cutting through it with their axes. Toiling away under the sweltering sun, Patton and Crockett decided to take a break and eat some lunch, and it was here where they would have a truly bizarre encounter. In a letter addressed to Abner Bergen, Davie Crockett recounted the following tale. 1836, Nacogdoches, Texas. William and I were pushing through some thicket, clearing the way, when I sat down to mop my brow. I sat for a spell, watching as William made his good and fine progress. I removed my boots and sat with my rations, thinking the afternoon a fine time to lunch. As the birds whistled and chirped and I ate my small and meager ration, I knocked my axe upon the opposite end of the felled tree I rested upon. Whether it was the axe's disturbance or possibly the heat of the high sun, which caused an apparition to slowly form out of the bushes in front of my eyes. I know not. As a Christian man, I swear to you, Abe, that what spirit came upon me was the shape and shade of a large ape man, the likes we might expect among the more bellicose and hostile Indian tribes of the territories. The shade formed into the most deformed and ugly countenance, covered in wild hair, with small and needling eyes, large broken rows of teeth, and the height of 3 foundlings. I spit upon the ground the bread I was eating. The monster then addressed a warning to me. Abner, it told me to return from Texas, to flee this fort, and to abandon this lost cause. When I began to question this, the creature spread upon the wind like the morning steam swirls off a frog pond. I swear to you, Abner, that whatever meat or sausage disagreed with me that afternoon, I forswore all beef and hog for a day or so afterwards. We all know what happened to Davie Crockett at the Alamo, everybody. So imagine that. A Bigfoot comes up to him and talks to him and tells him and warns him to turn back, that something bad is going to happen to him. So everybody out there that thinks that these creatures are supernatural, hey, there you guys go. Right there. I mean, it talked to him and it warned him about what was going to happen in Texas for him to turn around and go back. And as we all know, he didn't listen, and he made his last stand at the Alamo, and that's where he met his maker. Alright, so there you guys go. 2 stories from 2 American frontiersmen heroes, Davie Crockett and Daniel Boone. What do you guys think about these stories? Make sure you guys leave me some comments and let me know what you guys think. Make sure you hit that like button for me if you guys like this video. And if you're new to the channel, go ahead and fondle that subscribe button for me. Hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you guys are always aware of when I put out a new video. I usually put out at least 1 a week. Sometimes you'll get 2 from me. Sometimes you'll get that bonus video. But you're always going to at least get 1 video a week from me. Unless I'm sick or something like that, you know. But other than that, yeah, you're going to get at least 1 great video from me per week. And I really appreciate the support you guys are showing me. My channel's growing. You know, it's one of the fastest growing Bigfoot channels on YouTube. And we're going to keep on growing this channel and doing these videos. As long as you guys like them, I'm going to keep on making them. So that's where we're going to leave it. But before we do, let me remind you, there's some WILLSTAR merchandise out there to be had. It's flying off the shelves. It's doing pretty good. So if you guys haven't got your merchandise yet, make sure you guys check it out. Got some great hoodies out there, some mugs, some t-shirts, a lot of things, stickers, whatever you like. And if you are interested, I also have a Patreon you can sign up for. And if you sign up for the Patreon, after 3 months, you get some WILLSTAR merchandise, depending on the level you sign up for. Every level you'll get something. You know, the higher the level, better part of the merchandise you're going to get. Alright, so that's where we're going to leave it, everybody. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Once again, if you did, hit that like button for me. Leave me some comments. And until next time, everybody, remember, where there is a WILLSTAR, say it with me, there is a way. And we will talk to you guys later. Take care.